New this morning, Bahrain joining Saudi Arabia in severing diplomatic ties with Iran. This after protesters attacked the Saudi embassy, as you can see, in Tehran on Saturday. Iran's diplomats given 48 hours to leave the kingdom. The embassy attack coming in retaliation for Saudi Arabia's execution of 47 prisoners, including a revered Shiite Muslim cleric. These new tensions deepening an already dangerous divide between Sunni and Shiite Muslims. Joining us now is CNN's chief international correspondent and host of CNN Eyes, Amanpour Christian. Amanpour Christian, great to see you as always. Help us understand what's going on here. Why would Saudi Arabia, knowing that this would inflame tensions around the Middle East, execute this cleric?
Well, Alison, good morning. And it is troubling on many, many levels, both the execution and the reaction by Iran, and then the counter-reaction in Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, because it involves a whole load of U.S. allies and Iran, which has now become less of an adversary because of the nuclear deal, and a lot of hopes that perhaps it would come closer into the community of nations. So inside Iran, you have a division, a very clear division. The president, Hassan Rouhani, more moderate, has condemned these out of hand. The storming of the Saudi embassy in Tehran, called it unjustifiable, sent out a whole load of tweets, even accusing those Iranians who attacked the embassy of being extremists. And there have, according to Iranian authorities, been 40 arrests. Now, Khamenei, the supreme leader, the Ayatollah, more hardline, he is likening Saudi Arabia to another arm of ISIS. And he's put out a tweet that shows ISIS and ISIS. In other words, the two sides of ISIS, he says Saudi Arabia is one of those. Yeah. Now, on a deeper level, you've got the whole Sunni-Shiite divide and what it means about Syria and indeed Iraq, not to mention Yemen and the ongoing wars in all of those places.
Christian, let's look at that graphic that Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, put out. And how? Explain this to us. What does he mean, white ISIS versus black ISIS?
Well, there are those who are beginning to say, and who've been writing for a long time, that ISIS has two parents. One is in Syria, that is black ISIS, real ISIS, in Syria and in Iraq. And the other, they have said, is in Saudi Arabia. They accuse the Wahhabi, Salafi, very extremist, hardest of the hardline kind of Islam, Sunni Islam, as one of the sort of inspirations of ISIS. So that is the explanation of that graphic there. However, most of the government in Iran is reacting against those Iranians who have attacked the Saudi embassies. And as I say, there have been many, many tweets and condemnations by the president, Rouhani, plus arrests have been made, and he's been very public about that. The bigger picture, of course, is that Iran and Saudi Arabia have had terrible relations for a very, very long time. Periodically since the Islamic Revolution of 1979, they've broken off relations. It's very well known that Saudi Arabia was very against the nuclear deal that the United States and the other world powers signed with Iran because they were concerned that Iran would then be augmented, that Iran's power would be greater in the region. And Iran is the power center of Shiite Islam. Saudi Arabia is the power center of Sunni Islam. And there is a lot of competition and adversarial, movement, as we know, between those two big powers.
And Christian, of course, this puts America, the U.S., into a big predicament because it does have that agreement with the Iran nuclear deal, but yet Saudi Arabia is an ally. So where does the U.S. fall now?
Well, this has been a predicament for a long time, certainly throughout the nuclear negotiations, but also when you look at the very things that the United States is very concerned about in the region. You've got Iraq, obviously, which is an ongoing issue. You've got Syria, which is an ongoing issue. They have ISIS in common, and ever since this war broke out and ISIS started to rise, the war in Syria, I'm talking about nearly 5 years now, there has been, different powers on different sides of the Syrian civil war. The Iranians have been supporting Assad, along with Hezbollah and the others, and the Saudis have been supporting those anti-Assad rebels, and some of those are very hardline, very extremist. So there's been that going on as well. However, recently there was a U.S. brokered kind of agreement, the Vienna talks, all the interested parties were meant to come along and, try to make this all better and try to figure out a political end to the Syrian Syria civil war. So it is very, very complicated. Certainly the United States is calling for restraint, calling for, some kind of, calming of tensions in the region, but also condemned the Saudi Arabian execution of that cleric. Indeed, so did the EU, so did the UN, so do human rights organizations. The UN Human Rights Organization has condemned the execution of that cleric specifically.
Christiane Amanpour, thanks so much for helping us understand this very complicated situation. Let's get over to Michaela.
All right, back here at home, Donald Trump on the attack.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.